It's popping, gang. We are
This is the quickest way to clear out stuck poop.
The #1 food for regular.
And I know we all got same caliber questions, right? Did Tee Grizzley take his aunt out, bro? We ain't no detectives, we ain't none of that. But we are content creators. And we are reactors, right? So
Content warning. This video is about a sensitive topic involving loss of life. We've removed any graphic content to comply with YouTube's guidelines.
But if you ain't did it already, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and that bell.
Tragic event of public interest.
I know y'all wondering what is
seriousness. All clips are used under the doctrine of fair use for news
reporting
and analysis. Some points made in this video are
real quick. I want y'all to stop and just listen. Just listen. Listen. Did y'all hear that? Y'all don't hear nothing. My point exactly. My kids are gone, so we gonna do this quick stream. You know what I'm saying? Get the stream in, and yeah, go from there. But yeah, Tee Grizzley, K where his aunt, and we gonna see what's going on and what they got so far. And what we got to react to. So like I said, remember, like, subscribe, like, subscribe, come and ring that bell now. Get right to this thing.
Opinions and theories. I'm not responsible for third-party information. If you want to see an uncut version of this video, go to patreon.com/traplawross. Tee Grizzley is one of the most buzzing gangster rappers to ever come out of Detroit. With deep ties to the streets and a mother and father who were frequently in and out of prison, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. And growing up, Tee would find himself in trouble with the law too. Despite being the first person in his family to attend college, studying accounting and finance, at university, Tee was a menace and became infamous on campus for burglarizing the dorms.
I had like 40 laptops in there and like 20 iPhones. This is all stolen.
Oh my God.
So I'm shaking, I'm scared, like, damn, they about to go find it. You know what I'm saying? I'm sick.
He went on the run and kept on robbing, eventually finding himself on a lick gone wrong, catching a case for a failed attempt to rob a jewelry store.
I pulled the hammer out, boom, hit the glass. My man's go to grab the whole platform of watches, Rolex watches. All you hear is freeze.
Tee Grizzley ended up getting put behind bars for this brazen robbery spree. And while
went like an
he
undercover
vowed to change his life and become a rapper. He was released from prison at the end of 2016 and released his groundbreaking song First Day Out. This song blew him up instantly, scoring him over 2 million views in less than 3 weeks and over 300 million spins to this day. The song made him the hottest street rapper in America and launched a bidding war for his contract. And later, signing a major deal, he had truly made it out of the trenches, embarking on a lucrative career as a rapper. All with the help of his auntie JB, he would make it to the top. But today, in 2025, there's a dark rumor surrounding Tee Grizzley that might just tear down everything that he spent years building. In 2019, his aunt, through marriage to his uncle, would be gunned down in a gangland-style attack that Tee Grizzley claimed was meant for him.
Also, shots fired into an SUV, killing the manager and family member of a popular Detroit rapper. Off the top tonight at 11, investigators trying to determine if rapper Tee Grizzley was actually the intended target.
But, like, it was coming for me because they opened my door and was shooting in the car. They hit her 8 times, though.
Over the next 6 years, he would make music that paid tribute to his auntie and saw him vow to catch the killers responsible. From here, he would continue his rise and keep rubbing shoulders with the greats of the gangster rap game. One of those people he got close to during this time was Chicago drill rapper Lil Durk, who had his own deadly ties to the streets, with a particular association to a crew of killer rappers known as 600. Tee Grizzley got so close to Lil Durk that he would make a collaborative mixtape called Blooders with him in 2017, just 2 years before his aunt JB's murder. And after the murder, he would continue to collaborate with Lil Durk and his crew, collaborating with one particular member of Lil Durk's OTF collective and the gang 600, Booker 600, with Booker even being a groomsman at Tee's wedding. But Tee Grizzley's life would be absolutely turned upside down when it emerged in 2025 that a man was facing trial for the murder of his aunt JB. But to the surprise of everybody that had been following his career, the killer was a member of the 600 gang named Wu-Thang, and the details of the case were remarkably strange. 600 member Wu-Thang had allegedly camped outside the house that Tee Grizzley's aunt died at for 2 hours before the murder, and ever since that news came out, considering how close Tee Grizzley had remained to 600 600 members following the murder, rumors would fly that Tee Grizzley might have been the one to set up the killing himself. Since then, dozens of internet detectives following gang scenes in Chicago and Detroit have tried to connect the dots, uncovering a bizarre string of evidence that tore apart the official narrative that Tee himself had spread about JB's murder.
How did they know to wait out at that address for an hour and 56 minutes waiting for them to show up? It doesn't make sense whatsoever.
Rumors flew that Tee Grizzley might have even been in a relationship with his uncle's wife and inferred that she had tried to take control of his music career. Now with a reputation as a backdoor king and dozens of suspect lyrics about setting people up, many people think that Tee Grizzley's days are numbered. So today, we're going to take a forensic look at Tee Grizzley, his career, his lyrics, his interviews, and his entire digital footprint to try and work out once and for all if Tee Grizzley really is the set-up king that he portrays in his music, and whether he truly would have had a motive to take out his unarmed. If you want to watch my videos uncut and extended, go to patreon.com/traplawross, where you can get those for just $2. Also, you can now watch my new drops on Spotify, so go search me there. Here's the video. Tee Grizzley was born Terry Sanchez Wallace Jr. on March the 23rd, 1994, in the unforgiving streets of Detroit, Michigan, a place where dreams go to die and the streets claim more souls than they save. Some lose their lives to shootings and drive-bys, others to drugs and the cycle of addiction, and for many, the streets, the drugs, and the trap force good people to make bad decisions. The desperation in these streets often forces desperate parents to choose between their children and their own survival, and in Tee Grizzley's case, it was a deadly combination of drugs and abandonment that would define his childhood. As he would later explain in an interview with Adam 22 of No Jumper, both his parents were deep in the streets, selling drugs to survive.
My parents was the ones in the streets.
Oh, okay.
My parents, uncles, aunties, my whole family was in the streets.
Yo.
Just selling drugs or what kind of stuff?
Selling drugs.
And so you, as a very young kid, you remember like just seeing that and it was always normal to you, or was there a certain point where you realized?
It was so normal.
But beyond the drugs, prison was like a revolving door in his household, with his mother and father constantly going in and out of the system and leaving their son to be raised by whoever would take him in.
Man, it was crazy. I remember like when I was young, cause she been in and...
So basically, I don't know if y'all too familiar with, if anybody that's new that's joining the live right now, I don't know if y'all too familiar with this whole situation with Tee Grizzley, right? So Tee Grizzley, y'all know, got jammed up or whatever for allegedly having something to do with his aunt, right? He told us, turn your brightness up, we can't see you. Basically, it's just, basically, turn your weight down. Basically, they saying he allegedly has something to do with it, right? And y'all know Trap Lord Ross. I don't know how, but this little white boy be getting all the information. So.
And out all my life. You know what I'm saying? Which is why she got so much time in the feds when she did get her time, because of the point system shit.
That responsibility often fell on the shoulders of his grandmother, who lived in a small house near the intersection of Joy Road and Southfield Freeway in Detroit's notorious Warrendale neighborhood. His uncles and aunties also stepped in to fill the void left by his absent parents, but this didn't shield him from the streets either. If anything, it actually pulled him deeper into them. Just like Tee's parents, his extended family was also caught up in the drug game, and they weren't shy about involving a child in their operations.
But I kind of like doing these live reactions though,
him packages
because I get to interact more.
Customers.
I'll be sitting in the living room with my grandma.
Like it's more of a direct
and my
interaction.
uncle will be like, "Here, T, take this outside to them," and it'll be like some crack or some heroin. My grandma don't say nothing, like just normal.
For Tee, this was just normal life. At that age, he didn't understand the danger of what he was carrying or the lives these substances were destroying.
It never occurred to me what the drugs can do to people.
Really?
But even surrounded by all this chaos, he somehow managed to stay on a different
y'all rocking with the
trajectory.
turpin over the hat?
Or getting high on his own supply like so many others in his situation would have. In fact, he was actually pulling good grades in school, which was pretty impressive for someone growing up in these circumstances.
You know, but in school, I always did my work though because it was easy. You know, and plus, all my friends, we all did our work, and then
It was during these formative years that Tee's love for music really started to develop. Besides drug dealers, Tee's uncles were also aspiring rappers who would turn the basement into a makeshift studio. They would play hip-hop and R&B throughout the house, and Tee would watch them record tracks and craft lyrics, absorbing everything like a sponge. When Tee was about 12 years old, his uncles brought him along to the studio just to hang out, but during the session, they came up with the idea of making a young voice sing the chorus on one of their tracks. As it would turn out, Tee was the only kid in the studio.
I started rapping when I had to be about 12 years old. And I went to the studio one day with my uncles. I'm just coming with them. And they came up with an idea in the studio that they wanted to have younger voice singing a chorus.
At this point, he had never recorded anything before, and he didn't want to mess up in front of his uncles. But when they played it back and he heard his own voice coming through the speakers, he fell in love with the sound.
I'll put a picture up and show you how my head looks bald.
I sound like I'm shaking through the raps. But when I heard my voice playback, I fell in love with it.
From that moment on, Tee was hooked, and he would begin writing raps at home and creating songs of his own.
From there, I started writing raps at home. I started doing songs on my own.
By middle school, he would eventually form his own group with two close friends from school, JR and Lee, calling themselves All Stars Ball Hard, or ASBH for short, with Tee going by the moniker ASBHT. But even as a teenager, Tee was getting specific about topics like robbery and violence, establishing a blueprint for everything he would later become. In early ASBH tracks like Chopper Boys, his opening bars would talk about hunting his ops down in the dead of night. He would also call them fake gangsters for saying they rob and kill, and later shouting out his hood, warning outsiders to stay away. Also making reference to being a calculated planner who sees his targets clearly before he strikes. At this point, it wasn't deep, conscious rap songs they were making. They were just young teenagers rapping about young teenagers stuff, bragging about being fresh, having some money, or talking to lots of different girls. But they took it seriously enough to record their tracks and upload them to YouTube, likely hoping that someone, somewhere, would discover them and change their lives. By the time Tee was just 16, they managed to get a slot at a local club, even though they were way too young to even be in there legally.
I do the first performance I ever did, it was so dry. Cause it's like, we in this club, we so young that we not even supposed to be in the club.
But that first show was a disaster. The crowd didn't know their music, the promoter had just thrown them on stage as a favor, and the whole thing was, as Tee put it, dry.
And don't nobody know our music. The promoter dude just mess with us like, y'all wanna perform, I'm gonna get y'all on this little show. But ain't nobody know nothing, so it was just so dry, like.
This was the kind of humbling experience that either makes you quit music or makes you hungrier. Despite the rough start though, Tee would continue grinding. He was studying Detroit legends like Blade Icewood and the Street Lords, learning from the artists who had managed to make it out of the same neighborhoods that he was trying to escape. But even as Tee chased his musical dreams, the streets continued to take a toll on his family. In 2011, when Tee was just 17 years old, his mother got caught in a federal drug trafficking investigation that had been building for months. According to court documents, Tee's mother, LaToya, had left home at 13 to escape physical abuse from her stepfather and abuse from her uncle. At 14, she would meet Tee's father, Terry Wallace Sr., who himself was a drug dealer. She became pregnant with Tee and would be caught up in the web of her partner's criminal lifestyle and her own struggle with addiction and mental health issues that went undiagnosed for years. And to make matters worse, LaToya had developed a serious criminal history that stretched back years. She'd been convicted of escape in Superior Court of Lake County back in 1999, possession of cocaine in 2004, and delivery manufacturing of controlled substances in 2006.
Should we just run other reactions on her too?
They'd been conducting controlled buys from LaToya using undercover officers, recording evidence of LaToya selling crack cocaine on multiple occasions, twice in September and once in October. Each time the agents would purchase crack cocaine from her using marked money, and each time they would test the substance to confirm if it was cocaine base. When LaToya finally went to court in 2014, she ended up getting sentenced to 188 months. That's over 15 years in federal prison. The judge recommended she be placed in an institution with a comprehensive drug treatment program, but the bottom line was Terry's mom was going to be gone for a very long time. Losing his mother to the federal system was devastating, but in a twisted way, it wasn't entirely unexpected. LaToya had been in and out of prison throughout Tee's entire childhood, so he had already learned to live with her absence. But from here, it only got worse. Just 1 year later, during the summer of 2012, the streets would claim another victim from Terry's family. This time it was his dad, Terry Wallace Sr., who was murdered in the streets of Detroit.
You know what I'm saying? I done been through, you know what I'm saying? My pops got killed a couple years ago. I was old enough to feel that.
The timing couldn't have been worse. In the span of just 2 years, he had effectively lost both parents to the violence and drugs that plagued Detroit's streets. Around the same time, Tee would also lose a beloved teacher to another homicide. He would be quoted in the newspaper appreciating his teacher for advising him to stop hanging around the wrong crowd and to be determined to set and accomplish his goals. For most kids in his situation, losing all these important people in such a short time span could have been the breaking point, the point where they would have snapped and lost their way. But Tee was built different. He didn't crash out under the weight of these tragedies that were plaguing his life, at least not yet. In the midst of these tragic losses, Tee was still inspired by that teacher who told him that he could do better, and he would make a genuine attempt at using his education to break the cycle. Michigan State University accepted him to study finance and accounting, giving him a legitimate path to an honest job that could allow him to make big money the legal way. For the first time in the Wallace family's history, someone was going to get a degree and build something different, far away from the streets.
Everybody really just dying and getting locked up, and I got this acceptance letter to college, so it's like, I gotta do this.
Right.
or it ain't gonna be nothing else to do.
College was supposed to be Tee's fresh start, but instead, it would become yet another finesse, because unfortunately when he went to college, he took his gang ties with him and began to use the campus as a lick, committing robberies all over the university. But before we get to the case that would send Tee Grizzley to prison for years, let's take a closer look at the vicious Detroit gang that taught him how to rob. Coming into the 2010s, Detroit, Michigan was a city on the verge of bankruptcy. Following the collapse of the city's lifeline, its auto industry, which had been going through some extremely tough times, culminating in 2008's global financial crisis.
The situation at both Chrysler and General Motors is dire. The Treasury Department threw GM a $2 billion lifeline Friday, bringing its total bailout to $15.5 billion. GM must drastically restructure itself by June 1st to avoid bankruptcy, which many analysts and GM employees feel is inevitable.
You know, everybody's looking at the big picture, you know, about filing bankruptcy, you know, so we don't know what's ahead.
In the following years, the city would often top the list of the most dangerous cities in America, as well as being the poorest big city. Violent crimes were 5 times the national average, and the city's police were embroiled in all kinds of corruption allegations. Even the city's former mayor would go down in a massive RICO case. Recognizing that the city was in shambles, the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan at the time, Barbara McQuaid, would assemble the top federal and local law enforcement leaders from different agencies, establishing the Detroit 1 Violent Crime Reduction Initiative.
We stand together as a community. We work together for a peaceful Detroit.
Violent felons caught with guns in Detroit will face long federal sentences.
We are Detroit 1.
That little dude probably went and hung out with his homies right
At the core of the Detroit 1 initiative was an aim to identify and prosecute priority offenders, which they colloquially called the trigger pullers, as well as dismantling violent gangs and criminal organizations while engaging the community to act. This would also be taking place at a time when law enforcement and academics were beginning to pay increased attention to the social media activities of street gangs, as well as beginning to utilize the RICO laws again to bring down these gangs. And between 2012 and 2017, over 100 gang members were charged in more than a dozen racketeering cases in Detroit, including nationally affiliated gangs like the 7 Mile Bloods, Bounty Hunter Bloods, Rollin' 60s Crips, Latin Counts, and smaller sets like the band crew Young and Scantless, aka YNS, and 6 Mile Cheddar Grove, just to mention a few. But most important to this story is a gang also mentioned in the list, known as Related Through Money, or RTM. Well, technically RTM was more of an alliance of several rather small neighborhood cliques that included YFN, aka Young Fresh N-Words, YNF, aka Young N-Words Flexin', and BSM, aka Bang Squad Mafia.
So it's so funny, it's crazy. So I guess everywhere is doing this, right? All the big cities. So I don't know if they did it because of Chicago too. Like we was doing this too. We was doing this too, right? In the Lou, like we was doing it. Like we had F&G, FNF, YNR, just a bunch of different, you know what I'm saying? But that's basically, that's crazy. I thought we was like one of the only cities that really like started like really doing that, or it feel like you the only city that's doing that, because like when you were young, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy. Which
was apparently also the clique claimed by Tee Grizzley himself, who would often tweet how there was only a few members in the clique as a whole, and how already in 2013 he was the only member of Bang Squad that wasn't locked up. These 3 crews formed the core of the alliance, at least according to the feds, while other associated cliques included crews like PNF, aka Paid in Full, SMN, aka Self-Made N-Words, and of course also Tee Grizzley's rap group, All Stars Bull Hard, aka ASBH.
What it is, King T? What it is, King T? What it is, King T? Salute to all that. You feel me? Salute to all that.
According to the authorities, Related Through Money, aka RTM, or RTM the Mob, was a criminal street gang that operated in northwest Detroit in an area they called the Scud Zone, which they would sometimes stylize by replacing the O with a 9, which refers to exit 9 off the Southfield Freeway that takes you to the neighborhood, or more specifically, to Joy Road, which marked the southern border of their territory and the main road that they were repping. While the other borders, according to the feds, being the Southfield Freeway in the west, Plymouth Road in the north, and Greenfield Road in the east, the neighborhood is officially being known as the Joy Community, and according to
don't T be saying something about oh, okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Redditors, RTM would get started in the nearby Frank Cody High School, where many of the small cliques repped their own crews, until early 2011, when members of YNF, YFN, and BSM would, according to the feds, attend a meeting with the objective of reducing conflict and enhancing their ability to make money by any means necessary. Now, the feds would make it sound like these were some mafia families coming together to create some kind of La Cosa Nostra, but really, it should be made clear that the majority of these members were still just underage kids at this point.
Nevertheless,
Detroit is a city with a long gang history, and members of RTM would allegedly have associations and affiliations with several traditional gangs, such as the Insane Vice Lords, Westside Pyrus, and Bounty Hunter Bloods, as well as some more homegrown sets like the 8-2 Headbanger Bloods, who Tee Grizzley's little brother Baby Grizzly, also known as Joy Road Mama or RTM Mama, is allegedly a member of. His affiliation as a Blood seemingly going all the way back to his childhood. RTM would represent themselves regularly on social media, including dropping music, which wasn't limited to just crews like Tee Grizzley's All Stars Ball Hard. However, according to the feds, RTM also had beef with numerous rival gangs, including the previously mentioned band crew known as 2-2 Band Crew, who were often considered RTM's biggest ops.
Hey. Like who? Anybody. DJ. Oh, shut this down at the carnival. Thick as hell. We thick as hell.
I remember them days.
Thick as hell.
There was also TMCNE, aka Too Much Cash Never End.
Oh my God, I remember these days, man. Hey.
MVHN, aka Most Valuable Hood N-Words, YPB, aka Young Paid Bosses, YGB, aka Young Gutter Boys, BBC, aka Black Boys Cash Out, FAMO, aka Family Over Everything, TNO, aka Trust No One, and RNI, aka Real N-Words in Charge. Besides dissing each other on social media, these crews would often post videos of them confronting each other in real life, often leading to fights. Sometimes these fights would even end up on the local news.
Carnivals are supposed to be fun. You're supposed to see bright lights and hear laughter, but instead this is...
Oh my life, that's what it was like, bro. In the Lou, see, it wasn't even just the carnival, it was the Maydays. Oh my God, every year on the Mayday, hey, if you know, gang, hey. Man, the Maydays crack. Do not be at the Maydays by yourself. Oh my mama, if you was involved in any of this, do not be at these Maydays by yourself. If you're at these Maydays by yourself, you asking to get jumped. Oh, bro.
It's a carnival on a Saturday night. There are no lights.
Cause you gonna run into like
turned to screams after someone pulled a gun during a fight.
They beat me. Hey, look at my jacket. Look at my jacket all dirty. My jacket all dirty. My rims hurt. They was thumping me.
A carnival brawl in the middle of the
telling.
day. A swarm of flashing lights from the Northland parking lot cleared down 8 Mile and beyond. For hours, no matter where you looked, you'd likely see a group of kids getting arrested. Fox 2 cameras were rolling when police surrounded this group of at least 8 teenage boys. One by one, they were cuffed and loaded onto a Detroit police van as parents pleaded with officers not to arrest their sons. Police say it was a planned fight involving at least 7 gangs.
I seen it was a whole bunch of gangs and groups across the street towards Taco Bell, and when we was getting ready to leave, all I seen was them just all running towards each other, you know what I'm saying, acting like they about.
Her boyfriend got beat up. Her boyfriend, her brother, whoever she was there with, they got beat up. I can tell her type already, bro, because they were, I'm telling you, all cities, I'll tell everybody, bro, all cities the same, gang. All cities is the same, gang. All cities. No matter how you look at it.
They all got into it. They was finna fight and stuff like that. And then the boy had put out a gun. Then everybody started going crazy, running into it. They was finna fight.
So y'all gonna tell me she ain't involved in it? Y'all gonna tell me she ain't with us?
Fight and stuff like that. And then the boy had put out a gun. Then everybody started going crazy, running up 8 miles, 7 miles. And a lot of police just started coming and all that. So that's when everybody started getting on. The police started making everybody disappear. And that's when they said they shutting the carnival down.
As many Detroit natives who grew up in that era have recalled on social media, these crew beefs were wild. And many seem to look back on this era with a mix of fear and nostalgia at having survived those wild years. Even in the local news, the name of RTM would first be mentioned already in the summer of 2011, the supposed starting year of their alliance, when 15-year-old 19-year-old Antonio Fletcher was charged for allegedly shooting into a crowd at a graduation party, injuring 3 people, after he and his friends had allegedly barged in yelling the name of their crew. Fletcher would eventually plead guilty to 1 count of assault with intent to murder and felony firearm charges, and he would be sentenced as an adult. But as you might guess, the violence unfortunately didn't stop at failed attempts. During one particularly heated beef in 2012, a 16-year-old member of the band crew called YNC Squid, real name Marcus Cole, would allegedly shoot a member of RTM called YNF Josh in the face, causing RTM to go on a weeks-long hunting mission looking to get revenge on Squid. Then in May 2012, RTM would allegedly catch Squid walking on the Evergreen Road, where they would gun him down. The triggerman, according to the feds, being the alleged leader of the RTM subcrew YNF, called CEO Tay, real name Deontay Matthews. After the murder, a rival member of RTM would openly mention Tay's name in relation to the murder on social media, while friends of Squid would put out somewhat less direct posts that would still clearly
That's because everybody was saying Chicago
RTM to the murder. And of course, RTM members themselves couldn't help but post their own messages dissing Squid. In fact, Tee Grizzley himself didn't shy away from openly dissing Squid too. In 2013, his All-Stars Ball Hard crew would release a song and music video together with a crew called Stunt Hard Hot Boys titled Hey N-Words, where Tee can be seen wearing a shirt saying RIP Squid, this clearly being a way to troll the band crew. YNF Josh, the guy who had been allegedly shot in the face by Squid, would himself tweet how RTM had gone crazy after he'd gotten shot, while also mentioning how despite getting shot in the face, he had ultimately suffered little if any long-term injuries, while clowning how Squid had allegedly been running away from him while doing the shooting. But RTM would of course also suffer their own losses, one of these taking place around a year after the murder of Squid, when their member called YNF Nitty, real name Franklin Thomas, was shot in the head during a large fight. But the details of his death remain shrouded in mystery. However, what is very much detailed by the feds is that the members of RTM were acting completely out of control around this time, allegedly committing crime after crime, ranging from numerous armed carjackings, numerous jewelry store robberies and home invasions, as well as shootings and even more murders, until their crime spree would finally come to an end in 2015 when 5 of their key members were indicted on federal RICO charges. These included Deontay Matthews aka CEO Tay, Mayor Thedford, Brandon Sims aka B, Brandon Owens aka Lil B, and Antoine Foster Stockton aka Twan. Like with the other gangs, the US Attorney's Office would come out with a celebratory press release where they would praise the indictment as yet another example of the Detroit One initiative working to halt the city's out-of-control gang crime, while a special agent in charge of the FBI's Detroit Field Office would call the RTM members some of the most violent criminal offenders in the Detroit area. Tee Grizzley would actually comment on the indictment in his 2016 song Straight to It featuring Bad Gang, seemingly responding to the gossip in the Detroit streets of people wondering how he had gotten out. The indictment, with Tee stating that he was never part of the case while telling his haters to stay quiet. Then in 2017, the news would report how 10 members of RTM had been arrested altogether as part of the Detroit One initiative. It's not entirely clear who all 10 of these people were, but while Tee Grizzley may have avoided going down with RTM, he wouldn't escape trouble altogether, because ironically, one of the greatest blessings in his life at the time, his acceptance into Michigan State University, would ultimately become his undoing. With associations to one of Detroit's most feared street gangs, RTM, Tee Grizzley himself would become a prolific robber too, and unfortunately, despite being the only person in his family to attend college for generations, his connection to the lawless streets of Detroit meant that he would start being a menace on campus. When Tee first arrived at Michigan State, he was genuinely trying to do the right thing. He started hanging out with good students, focusing on his studies, and staying away from trouble.
Right away, I started hanging with some dudes that was doing good in college. I started hanging with some dudes that was doing good. Like, I ain't even have it in my mind to do nothing illegal when I first went there.
Right.
I'm hanging around good people. Boom, the people who like, I was at seeing that orientation and we both from the city, so we like, bet we just gonna rock out together up here.
In fact, as a finance and accounting major, Tee had access to internships and opportunities that could have set him up for a legitimate career after graduation. The internships would pay for his flights and hotel, but he was expected to cover his own meals, professional clothing, and other expenses.
Now within my major, I had access to some internships, but I had to travel. You know, they was gonna pay for the ticket there in the hotel, but I had to buy my own food and have a change of clothes and had this type of business attire and all that type of stuff.
Now, for the average college student, this wouldn't be a big deal, as they could easily ask their parents for help or use money they'd saved up. But Tee didn't have parents to call, and he definitely didn't have any savings. He was broke. When you're desperate and surrounded by other more privileged people's expensive belongings, sometimes that desperation leads to bad decisions. Eventually, Tee would link up with his friend JR, real name Jeremy Ford, who magically popped up with 11 grand on him shortly after struggling to pay an $80 phone bill.
One friend in particular.
He popped up with 11 grand on him shortly after struggling to pay an $80 phone bill.
One friend in particular came up there. He was broke. Someone like, I only had $80 left and paid this phone bill. Now, I needed some money, but I'm trying to get a job. So the broke friend come back one day with like $11,000 on him.
Tee asked JR to put him on, and with that, they came up with a dirty plan.
Whatever you did, I don't know what you did, but whatever you did, we doing it again tonight. I don't care what it was.
I don't care what you did,
we're gonna do it.
Stealing laptops, electronics, cash, basically anything that they could find.
So we got to break it in dorms and all that. So now I'm running my money up.
By February 2014, they had stolen over $20,000 worth of items from their fellow students. Tee would later tell Adam22 that he had accumulated 40 laptops and 20 iPhones from this crime spree.
I had like 40 laptops in there and like 20 iPhones. This is all stolen.
Oh my God.
But on February the 27th, 2024, their run came to an end when state police caught Tee and JR on their way out of campus.
He like, after we grab him, I'm about to grab my bags out of here and we just gonna slide to Detroit right quick because it's getting hot up here. They starting to catch on to us. So we knock on the door. One of the Michigan State police officers answered the door. Boom. They come out there, search us, take all our money off of us. Went to my room.
So you were just about to leave?
I was just about to leave.
Tee had only been at Michigan State for about 4 months, barely long enough to settle into college life, and already he was throwing it all away.
How long have you been in college at this point?
I was only up there for like 4 months.
Really?
I was only up there like for 4 months.
When word got around that he'd been arrested, another one of Tee's friends ran to Tee's dorm to grab all of the stolen gadgets and move it to their own dorm. This evidence tampering would hurt the police case, forcing them to let Tee go, but take more time to properly build a case against him.
They processed us, let us go without no charge. 5 months later, they came back and charged us.
At this point, Tee knew what this meant. They had him dead to rights, and it was only a matter of time before they would come back with charges. So he made a decision that would make everything worse. He went on the run, fled the city, and went 500 miles south to Kentucky. But halfway to Kentucky, Tee received a call from the Lansing Sheriff's Department saying they had a warrant for his arrest.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Wallace? This is such and such with the Sheriff Department in Lansing. Yeah, we got a warrant out for your arrest.
Now, Tee wasn't just running from his problems, he was a wanted man, and he would later claim that he felt like public enemy #1, with every cop in that city looking for him.
On the way to Kentucky at that point, I'm like, I'm a wanted man. Because I'm like, damn, I feel like I'm public enemy #1. In America, I'm like, every cop in America is looking for me right now.
But instead of going back and turning himself in, Tee continued his trip to Kentucky. He knew that he needed money for a lawyer, money that he didn't have.
Gotta do it now, because I gotta go hit the lick and pay for the lawyer. I ain't got no pay.
And it was
real quick. I'm sitting there thinking about it. I might as well do it, huh? Hold on. I'm finna try something. Yeah. What's poppin', gang? Hope y'all got it. Let's smoke a little peso. Let's get into it. Alright, so basically I'm gonna give y'all a quick rundown. We live right now, right? We live, and I'm gonna start recording. I've been recording for approximately 30 minutes now. And I'm sitting here thinking, right? I'm sitting here recording a video. I might as well record the video, right? I mean, it's gonna self-post anyway, but I'm saying, like, y'all get what I'm saying. Like, what I'm saying is, we recording and we live. You know what I'm saying? Get it, got it, good, let's get it. So basically, they're doing a Tee Grizzley, did he kill his aunt? And you know, Trap Lord Ross, he likes to start from the beginning. He likes to start from the beginning. From the beginning. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we are now talking about when he caught his first case. The one I think that got him sent up the road. So, bear with me. We 27 minutes in.
It was here that Tee made the biggest mistake of his young life, because instead of laying low and staying out of trouble, Tee and 4 other guys decided to rob a jewelry store called the Castle on West New Circle Road. Before executing their plan, they made a strategic move to call the police, claiming there was a shooting at a local school, hoping to draw officers away from their target area.
Police come. I knew it was gonna take the police a long time because we called the police before we got there and said we seen somebody with a gun on campus.
With that, Tee and his crew walked into the jewelry store in broad daylight. It was hot as hell in Kentucky, but they were wearing hoodies to try and conceal their identities. When people in the store questioned why they were dressed like that in 90-degree weather, they would claim that they were boxers trying to lose weight.
We walk in the jewelry store in Kentucky. Hot as bro, we got on hoodies. They're like, damn, what y'all? Everybody look at us in the store. Why y'all got them hoodies on? Like,
but the plan was simple. One of Tee's partners was supposed to smash the glass display case with a hammer and grab everything they could. But when Tee saw his partner hesitating, he took it upon himself to make the move. That's when they heard the word freeze.
My man's just supposed to hit the glass. He taking way too long. I'm trying to get the on. This was the furthest thing from a college student.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna do that.
Yeah,
right?
all right, bet.
He taking all day. I do this. As soon as I did, I heard freeze. Right? Now,
you said freeze?
Said freeze.
Like bro. This is actually some cops and robbers. Like freeze!
According to Tee, a customer who was buying golf clubs had pulled out a gun and was pointing it directly at them.
Like the way we got caught, a customer pulled the gun out. It wasn't nobody who worked at the store. That was a customer. Pulled the gun out.
Like some off-duty cop?
Wasn't an off-duty cop, a regular civilian that was in there buying some golf clubs, bro.
News reports claimed that it was the general manager, but whatever the case, Tee would immediately drop his hammer and get on the ground, not wanting to test his luck or lose his life, unlike 2 of his accomplices who actually managed to escape.
When I hear freeze, first thing I think in my mind, because I don't want to ever die.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So as soon as I hear freeze, I instantly think somebody got a gun in this pocket, bro. You feel me? He cocked it back. Get down, bro. Get down.
Tee would later claim that he could see it in the man's eyes that he wanted to shoot him, and he was just looking for an excuse.
A white dude?
Yes.
Of course.
And I saw it in his eyes, bro. Listen.
You saw in his eyes he was ready to go.
I saw it in his eyes he wanted to so bad, bro.
For the next hour and a half, they would lay on that jewelry store floor while that customer or manager held them at gunpoint waiting for the police, who had been diverted by the fake school shooting call that Tee's crew had made earlier. And when the police finally did show up, they tried everything to get Tee and his remaining accomplices to snitch on each other, offering them deals, but none of them gave in.
You could go home right now.
A word?
Yeah. You go home right now. Just tell us who put the plan together. Like, what happened?
The conditions in the Kentucky jails were brutal, and reportedly, this is one of the worst facilities in the United States. And once locked up, Tee realized that his court-appointed lawyer barely gave a damn about his case, so he would pick up the law books himself and begin reading about similar cases.
So I look in the law book, I'm damn, all right, bet. Like, I start finding. I ain't got no money for no lawyer, so I got a court appointment. He don't really give a feel me? I'm looking through the law book.
Through all of that research, Tee and his co-defendants would discover that their case didn't have to be armed robbery under Kentucky law and could be knocked down to destruction of property instead.
Oh, we ain't never make it out the jury though, so they can't call it a robbery. This destruction of property at the most.
And when the prosecutor finally offered them a deal of 5 years with only 10% to be served, Tee knew that they had to take it because going to trial as an out-of-town defendant with no connections would mean getting made an example of.
Prosecutor, come. All right, bet we'll give y'all 5 years, 10%. Y'all do about 9 months and then get out. But I'm like, bro, if we go to trial, they gonna make an example out of us. We from out of town, we don't know nobody down here, we ain't got no lawyer. We taking this deal straight up.
And with that, Tee was sentenced to just 9 months in Kentucky for the jewelry store robbery, but his legal troubles were far from over. While he was already serving that time, Michigan came calling for the dormitory robberies at Michigan State, and they wanted Tee to face justice. The transfer from Kentucky to Michigan came with an unexpected highlight when the transport officers apparently let them stop to get McDonald's.
They let us stop at McDonald's though, that was the highlight. Well, I've been locked up for about 2 years. I ain't had no food in a minute.
That would be his last McDonald's treat in almost 2 years, because in September 2015, Tee was hit with an 18-month to 15-year sentence for the Michigan State robberies. What had started as a desperate attempt to afford college expenses had now cost him everything: his education, his freedom, and potentially the next decade and a half of his life. But it was during this lowest point, sitting in a prison cell with nothing but time on his hands, that Tee would rediscover his love for rap music that had been dormant since his ASBH days. And with a natural talent for rapping, he would be blessed with yet another chance of success, this time finding the legitimate opportunity to go straight that he fumbled at university. But unfortunately for Tee, unlike a university education, becoming a poppin' street rapper would sadly come with a whole lot of baggage. Winding up in prison, this stripped away all the distractions and forced Tee Grizzley to focus on what would really save him from the streets, his music. But things didn't start off easy. When he first started rapping in prison, one of the inmates would clown him for having weak bars.
So when you was in jail and you was rapping, was like you was nice?
I ain't gonna lie, told me I was weak as hell at first. Told me it was weak. I'm like, listen to this.
But beyond the criticism, this inmate would also explain to Tee that his songs had to be so universal that everyone who listens to it would not only understand and relate, but also feel it.
So when you make a rap, you gotta be kind of universal where everybody can understand it and everybody can relate to it and feel it. Don't say something that you just like and don't nobody else like.
That criticism would make Tee realize that he had only been rapping about things that would fly over most people's heads.
I gotta kind of get more universal with it. You know what I'm saying?
With this newfound insight, he would begin writing obsessively, using his life as material for more relatable bars and crafting what would eventually become his entire debut mixtape while serving that sentence.
I wrote CDs, I wrote over 100 songs. Everything on the mixtape was true. Everything I said on the mixtape was like, what's so unique about it to me is everything I said on the mixtape actually happened. The people that I name is like actual people. The situations was actual situations.
On October the 16th, 2016, after serving nearly 2.5 years behind bars, Tee walked out of prison with nothing but a plan. He had the whole strategy mapped out, starting with getting his driver's license so he could easily get around the city.
What was the plan?
My plan. So I'm like, all right, bet. As soon as I come home, I gotta get a license. You feel me? So I can get back and forth to where I gotta go. That's the first order of business.
Now he needed money for studio time, but this plan would hit a roadblock when his parole officer would present him with an ultimatum to either get a job within 2 weeks or get locked up again.
When I came home, my PO like, listen, you need a job within 2 weeks or you getting locked back up. And I'm like, damn. My whole plan, I ain't got time to get my license.
The next day, Tee showed up at the golf course where his friend worked dressed in uniform. He went straight to the boss with a desperate pitch. He asked for a job with no benefits or pay. He just needed his file to reflect that he had gotten a job.
I get the exact same outfit. This got gloves and everything. I go talk to the boss. I'm like, listen, you ain't gotta pay me. You ain't gotta do nothing. I ain't got my ID. I just need to have on file that I got a job, that I work here so I can show my PO.
While working at the golf course, he started reaching out to anyone and everyone he knew desperate for financial assistance to pay for studio time, but no one would spot him money, not even his family.
So I'm working up there. Meanwhile, I'm asking my people, like, bro, let me hold like $250 so I can buy some studio time. He's like, all right, bet, when you gonna give it back? I'm out to $250. When I'm gonna give it back, bro? I just got out. It's $250.
Yeah. In fact, family members dismissed his musical aspirations, telling him his dream was impossible and he should get a real job. But there was one person who believed in him when no one else would, and that was his aunt, Jabina, JB Brown. JB was married to Tee's uncle and had been in his life since he was a teenager. While everyone else saw a convicted felon with impossible dreams, JB saw potential and would be the only person willing to invest her own money into Tee's music career. As JB herself would post on Instagram, she had been one of the biggest supporters of Tee's rap career ever since the early days of All Stars Ball Hard, with her even selling their CDs out the trunk of her car. And the two had for a very long time a very special type of bond, with Jabina even posting several times how they've had many conversations that can't be repeated, likely due to their deeply personal nature. While Tee Grizzley himself would ominously post on his Facebook that if JB dies, he can't tell the story because he's dying with her, showing the extraordinary bond that these two shared. At one point, JB was even so busy with Tee Grizzley's music career that she lamented on social media that she didn't have time for a relationship, with eyebrows being raised when Tee Grizzley made a response that suggested she didn't need a relationship because she had him. But anyway, with the help of JB, ASBHT would transform into Tee Grizzley, and a week after his release, he was in the studio, recording the song that had been brewing in his mind throughout his entire prison sentence. That song would be called First Day Out, and on the track, Tee simply told his story, the story of a young man who had lost everything and was determined to rebuild his life through music. He opened with bars speaking on how people had hoped for his downfall and how he stood his ground and was now using his success to prove those same people wrong. From there, he dove into the first verse, reflecting on how being broke affected him and recalling moments when he asked for help but was ignored. He would then go on to brag about success, now driving luxury cars and living a lifestyle far removed from his struggles. In the second verse, he shouted out JR, the same homie who had been with him when they were both arrested for the Michigan robberies, and would make it clear that his loyalty was a non-negotiable, telling his homies to kill him if he ever snitched because he would do the same to them if they snitched. After recording the track, they shot the music video outside the same correctional facility where Tee had actually been locked up, with him wearing the same clothes that he had on when he was released from prison. And it was JB who made this all possible. When Tee needed money for studio time, beats, and the music video, she stepped up when no one else would, taking on the role of his manager. The video for First Day Out was uploaded to YouTube on November the 7th, 2016. At the time, Tee had only 1,500 followers across his social media platforms, but within a few minutes of the video dropping, it had gained over 200,000 views.
We refreshed that. It had 200,000 views, same night. Within a few minutes, 200,000.
You ain't put no ads and none of that on it?
How?
You don't even know nothing about
I had
this.
1,500 followers. You feel me? No marketing, no promo, no none of that. I ain't know about.
Listeners in the comments were instantly hooked, with some claiming it had the hardest beat drop they had ever heard. And over the next 3 weeks, First Day Out would rack up over 2 million views on YouTube, and it would go on to rack up well over 300 million views on the platform. Tee even got a huge co-sign from NBA superstar LeBron James, who posted the song on his Instagram, exposing the track to his millions of followers. This single post apparently tripled Tee's record sales overnight.
My record sales tripled after LeBron put that up. Shout out to LeBron James, you done made me a couple dollars.
And then the bookings started coming in. About a week after dropping the video on YouTube, Tee got his first major offer worth 50 grand to perform in Ohio, despite the fact that he only had this one song out at the time.
Hey, we want to book you in Ohio, Cleveland. We got 50,000 for you. I ain't never had 5,000. I ain't never had 5,000. You feel me? We got 50,000 for you. I'm like, what? I only got one song. Like, I went on a whole tour run performing one song, bro.
And shortly after that, Jay-Z, notoriously inactive on social media, actually tweeted out that Tee Grizzley had the hardest song out. For a young rapper from Detroit who had just gotten out of prison, having Jay-Z co-sign his music was like winning the lottery.
Jay-Z shouting you out, what does that feel like? I'm sure that he's somebody that you grew up listening to.
Definitely, that was a lot of my people, my family's favorite rapper. You know, that felt good. That was one of the best days in my music career when I saw that.
Then he started getting offers to sign to labels, but Tee was strategic about his decision.
We first got a call from Interscope. We got a call from Atlantic. And it was like 2 other ones. And then 300 called.
Of the bunch bidding for his contract, he eventually chose to sign with 300 Entertainment, which was distributed through Atlantic Records. The deal felt right because 300 apparently had a true understanding of Tee's artistry and wanted to support his vision wholly.
Business, you know what I'm saying? But when 300 called, they was like, man, what you? You know what I'm saying? We trying to get you out here, like we behind you, you know what I'm saying? That felt good. I'm like, all right, bet.
Now, following up a viral hit is one of the hardest things to do in music, but Tee was ready. He released Second Day Out, an extension of First Day Out, on March the 10th, 2017. Just months after, once again he came in strong, claiming how he now had his eyes set on the bag and was determined not to let anyone slow him down. The music video itself opened with Tee arriving at the cemetery where his father was buried carrying flowers. Once the beat drops though, the visuals switch up, cutting between shots of Tee dropping bars in the studio and performing at the cemetery. But unlike First Day Out, which surpassed 300 million views on YouTube, Second Day Out didn't come close to matching that level of success, managing to only surpass 1 million views since its release 8 years ago. While the track would get a lot of fans hyped up, it would also draw a mixed reaction, with some people claiming that it wasn't as good as his debut song. But after a shaky follow-up, less than 2 weeks after Second Day Out drop, Tee would release From the D to the A featuring Lil Yachty. The song paid homage to both artists' home cities, with Tee Grizzley repping Detroit and Lil Yachty repping Atlanta. Clearly, Tee Grizzley was already getting to the bag at this early stage in his career, as the song was wall-to-wall with inspirational lyrics about how much money he was getting now that he was a popping rapper. But at the same time, Tee Grizzley also made it clear that even at this point in his career, people wanted him dead, and he was willing to defend himself. From the D to the A was the follow-up that fans were really looking for after First Day Out, and this song would eventually go 5 times platinum. He would follow this up with the mixtape My Moment. Dropping on April the 7th, 2017 via 300 Entertainment, My Moment captured Tee Grizzley's explosive entry onto the hip-hop scene following his prison release. The album channeled his raw trauma and was anchored by the viral hit First Day Out that established Tee Grizzley as the city's next big poppin' rapper. According to Tee, he wrote all of My Moment while serving his 18-month prison sentence. The track Day Ones mourned his imprisoned and dead friends. It was everything that fans had been waiting for, not just for Tee, but also for the whole of Detroit hip-hop. For years, the city had struggled to get mainstream recognition for its street rap scene. Now don't get me wrong, artists like Eminem, Trick, Royce da 5'9", and Big Sean have truly put Detroit on the map for rappers, but Tee's success opened the floodgates for a new generation of Detroit artists with authentic ties to the streets who had been grinding for years but weren't getting the industry's recognition.
Got signed, and I really opened up doors because I'm the first person to get signed to a label, you know, from the city that sound like how I sound. Some dudes come and get up under artists, and some dudes got other sounds from Detroit and make it like Eminem and Big Sean. But me, I got that Detroit culture, you know what I'm saying, and labels took to it, fans took to it.
My Moment peaked at number 44 on the Billboard 200 and was certified gold. That year, Tee also received 2 BET Hip Hop Award nominations, which he would celebrate by copping a new bear chain. Throughout the rest of 2017 and 2018, Tee would continue to build his catalog and reputation, releasing the collaborative mixtape Blooders with Lil Durk in December 2017. Hot off the back of Durk's Signed to the Streets 2.5 tape that dropped in October and was really an attempt to revive his career, as around this time a lot of people were claiming Lil Durk had fallen off musically, and this street collab was something that was supposed to bring his career back to life with some of Tee's street cred, something that he mentioned in the song Third Person. The project was a fan favorite, and fans in the comments of the mixtape on YouTube loved to see the Chicago and Detroit streets coming together, describing the collaboration as dangerous. The project's lead single was called What Yo City Like, and it leaned into the idea of both rappers repping their respective cities, with Tee Grizzley starting the first verse asking Durk what his city's like and rapping how in Detroit you gotta keep your gun on you, with Durk replying with some rather interesting lyrics where he rapped about how they get down in Chicago, sending his young hitters to park outside their ops' cribs and wait for them to come out. The project Blooders was a project that highlighted loyalty, survival, and the pure rawness of both the Chicago and Detroit streets. Interestingly, on the track Third Person, Tee and Durk would take turns talking about their haters, with Tee rapping from the perspective of the family members who watched him suffer and did nothing about it, and Durk from the perspective of supposed rumors circulating about him being a snake, as well as the criticisms that he got from listeners who gave up on him years ago. According to both rappers, the foundation for this collaboration was built on mutual respect that had developed between them over time, and as we'll later discuss, apparently their friendship certainly ran deeper than music. In an interview with Red Bull Music Academy, Tee would explain that he had always been a longtime fan of Durk and the Chicago rap scene, not just because it reminded him of Detroit, but also because it motivated him. This admiration wasn't one-sided either, as Tee had earlier shouted Durk out on his song No Effort. But beyond collaborative projects, Tee was also getting busy with his solo career, releasing his debut studio album Activated on May the 11th, 2018, peaking at number 10 on the Billboard 200. Arguably, the album showed just how much Tee had grown as an artist, while maintaining that raw authenticity that made him stand out, with fans across social media platforms echoing the sentiment about how great the album was. One fan in particular pointed out how Tee had kept his lyrical approach whilst experimenting with different sounding beats. That year, Tee would receive the MTV Video Music Award nomination, yet again validating his place amongst hip-hop's rising stars. For someone who had been an unknown armed robber just years earlier, this level of commercial and mainstream success was remarkable. Following the album Activated, Tee would continue to build up his catalogue, coming through with his second commercial mixtape, Still My Moment, that dropped on November the 9th, 2018. This tape featured collabs with Quavo, Offset, Chance the Rapper, and Lil Pump, and debuted at number 29 on the Billboard 200. On June the 7th, 2019, Tee would release his second studio album, Scriptures, which would also debut at number 20 on the Billboard 200. Now, this was a brilliant album and it has some absolute bangers on it. There was one particular song on there called Had To that had some very strange lyrics. Now, Scriptures dropped on June the 7th, 2019, which is a little over 2 months before the murder of Tee Grizzley's aunt and manager, JB. On the song Had To, we see a very sinister Tee Grizzley rapping about how he had to betray and kill one of his own friends. The song plays out almost like a confession, where Tee Grizzley raps about being forced to set up and kill one of his own friends for getting in the way of his plan. Grizzley raps about being forced to set up and kill one of his own friends for getting in the way of his plans. Throughout the song, he raps about demons talking to him and telling him to shoot everybody and bury them. He raps openly about not simply being able to cut this person off because they know too much about his personal life, and how he still planned to take care of their kids and mother after killing them. He even chillingly describes having to attend a funeral and walk past the casket of the person who he just killed while thinking about witnessing and committing their murder, with demonic lines saying that he saw shock and disbelief in their eyes when they realized Tee Grizzley was the one who set them up. Now, Tee is talking about setting up and killing a male friend in the first part of the song, but as it progresses, he begins talking about a woman and rapping about how he played a woman just for and she fell in love with him. The song is a very strange thing to look back on, and while it's not necessarily evidence of anything more than Tee Grizzley being a vivid and creative storyteller, it frankly looks wild looking back at it now. Even if all it does is paint Tee Grizzley as having fantasies of setting up those closest to him and smiling in everybody's faces afterwards. But regardless of any fictional fairy tales on the mic, within just a few months of this track, a real life tragedy would strike in Tee Grizzley's real life, leaving a trail of very questionable clues and years of speculation as to whether Tee Grizzley was really living the question questionable lyrics that he was dropping on the microphone. On August the 20th, 2019, Tee Grizzley had been at a studio in Detroit recording new music before leaving. Shortly before 9 p.m, T, JB, and their driver would arrive at a location on 3 Mile Drive, just off of Mack Avenue where T's cousin lived. According to T, he would beg JB to come inside the house, knowing how dangerous the streets of Detroit can be, but she would refuse, claiming that the house was too dirty for her, as she was apparently a germaphobe with very high standards of cleanliness. T would then, according to himself, go on the side porch alone and ring the bell, but it was taking a long time for anyone to open the door. And when the door was finally opened, he would suddenly hear shots going off behind him, making him hit the ground, as he was thinking that the shooter was about to come his way next, and he didn't have anything to protect himself with. At the same moment, T's cousin would run out with a gun, causing T to get up too and run towards the shooting. But when they got to the street, T's car was already gone, as was the shooter. This was because immediately after the shooting began, the driver would take off, driving to a nearby gas station next to the intersection of Buckingham and Mack Avenue. Here he would stop and try and get help after discovering the person in the back seat, Jubina Brown, had been shot during the incident multiple times, and she would unfortunately later pass away in hospital. The driver would give his account of events to police, explaining how an unknown shooter had opened the left side rear passenger door before opening fire, shooting Jubina multiple times, at which point he drove off and then called 911, stopping at a gas station where the police and medics would ultimately find them. But interestingly, while T had been with JB right before the shooting, for whatever reason, the person who would actually end up identifying her body after she would pass away at the hospital would be the rapper Sada Baby, who had become extremely close with JB after she had also begun to manage his music career.
Now, we're not going to talk about the Tee Grizzley situation at all, but I do want to say his aunt was actually your manager at one point.
That's my baby.
How did you feel when she got killed?
Same way I feel now.
That was sad, man.
It's past sad.
Yeah.
I had to identify a body.
Really?
Yeah, man, because, yeah, I had to.
Because you were just the first person they called at the time, or?
I was the closest to kin that was at the hospital.
Oh, because you're related to her? No?
No, I just was the closest to kin at the hospital.
Closest to kin.
We'll discuss Sada Baby's feelings about the incident later, but for now, the rest of Detroit would receive the news of this tragic situation, hitting the most prominent gangster rapper in the city. The following day, the news of JB's murder would surface online, as TMZ would break the story, followed by numerous other outlets, particularly the local Detroit News.
Also, shots fired into an SUV, killing the manager and family member of a popular Detroit rapper. Off the top tonight at 11, investigators trying to determine if rapper Tee Grizzley was actually the intended target.
He was with his aunt when those shots were fired on Detroit's east side. Jermont Terry is live tonight. Jermont, was the rapper hurt at all?
Kimberly, tonight we know the Detroit rapper was one of 3 people inside that car when the shots went off. Now, when they're in that shooting, the rapper...
We're going to pick up on this one later. This is a lot. This is a lot to take in, and they doing a lot of talking around, and it's frankly making me tired. So we're going to pick up on this later after we get some more 93. Maybe this one, maybe a different one. I don't know, man. But if you still here, if you made it this far, remember, like, subscribe, comment, ring that bell, and I'll catch you on the next one. That's it. That's all I got for you. We gone. You dig?